Today, we're doing something a little different for Pelican Briefs. To give our audience some additional context and critical updates on our Season 1 topics, Charles and I are interviewing community members to get their insights on the issues impacting New Orleans and Louisiana. Today, we're very excited to have the host of the Neutral Ground joining us. Good afternoon, Kaare Johnson, and welcome to Pelican Briefs.
Guys, thanks
Welcome.
for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks.
So our first question is a pretty general question. Like us two, you are also a native of New Orleans. So these are three natives speaking right now, and we deeply care for the city, and we fully acknowledge, and I listen to your show, right, a lot of problems that we face in New Orleans, right, but we fight for it. So our first question for you is, as a native of New Orleans and as a longtime resident, what are your initial thoughts on hearing that Governor Landry wanted to deploy the Louisiana State Police to the city?
My initial thoughts at first were it's probably a good idea. I mean, you always have to, with Jeff Landry, I think you have to think about politics first. Is there an agenda here for him personally more than for the city? But I think everybody in the community, black, white, old, young, Republican, Democrat, affluent people, inner city people that don't have a lot of wherewithal, I think finally it was like enough's enough with crime. So I think the declining NOPD numbers, I was saying on my show, I mean, bring in Jefferson Parish sheriff deputies like on like a detail and put them in a car with an NOPD officer. Yeah, it knows the city, and they have the JP with them, just so you have two people, another cop, another set of eyes, bring in state police. So I kind of like the state police in the city. I think it's some significant results have happened, I think, because of that, and several other factors where violent crime is, what is New Orleans, like major city? I think only Columbus, Ohio's got a quicker decline in violent crime than New Orleans. And I think with all cities, and some are smaller than us, it's like we're fourth. So pretty significant decrease in crime. So right now, I think it's a positive.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was hesitant at first, but kind of like you, I agreed that, that 21 to 22 period was rough. The carjackings were out of control, the juvenile crime. I was really frustrated because up to the pandemic, New Orleans was making historic lows in crime rates. We were making progress like none other, and the pandemic uprooted all of that. And here we are, getting almost 5 years removed, and we keep seeing the press releases, right? Dramatic decreases in crime. It's working. The police doing this, working with NOPD. So I definitely agree that we came from a very low point, right? And we were we got
improvement was inevitable.
Right.
How could you go any lower?
Did you have any gut hesitation you said intent, right? So we all know that the governor doesn't necessarily have a fond view of New Orleans, right? Kind of that antagonism. So I agree that the intent, I wasn't hesitant on the intent, but I'm happy with the results right now. So what was your hesitation when it comes to that aspect?
Oh, well, just strictly if it was political and agenda driven, just like to get votes or like the 10 Commandments thing. He can't lose with that. He's going to lose, and he wins because he tried. The fluke, the 1 out of 1,000,000, it sticks, then he wins there. So he can't lose with that. His base loves that kind of stuff. So I always think about that, like, is he, thinking about the next election or appeasing his base? You kind of said, like, he doesn't like New Orleans. I kind of agree with this. It's sort of a catch-22. I think he knows that's the engine that drives the ship.
Right.
So that's why New Orleans should be like Nashville and Austin should be great. He's kind of caught in between, but I think he generally gets that New Orleans needs to be well-run city, at least angling towards like in Austin or Nashville as far as economy and how it's run, and not the shenanigans in government and things of that nature for it to move forward. But yeah, I'm always weary of someone who's as political as Jeff Landry about if it's an agenda or if it's a real solution. But this appears to be working, and I don't see like car drifting, four-wheelers on Sundays, just like the BS minor stuff. And then I think we don't see the major violent crime also. Something I don't think that anyone really mentions. We can talk about that, and magistrates and judges being a little better with bail and bond, and DA Jason Williams doing a better job, and police doing a better job, all. But there's like 400 violent criminals in New Orleans, and that sweep, like about 2 months ago, I think they picked up like 150 with like 20 law enforcement agencies. I mean, when you cut the violent criminal population down by a third, I think that might be the number one mover of all of these. I think all the other ones are great little pieces, but that's something that everybody seems to overlook. But that sweep was pretty serious with the 20 different agencies and 150 people they arrested.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point in that there are other factors that go into why we're seeing that decrease. Kind of circling back to that, we are seeing those crime statistics go down. How do you think that aligns with Governor Landry's potential desire to have the state police be a long-term initiative in the city? And do you think that is actually viable as a way to maintain lowering crime statistics?
I think it's just an add-on, an extra. And I don't see a problem at being here full time. I like the Troop NOLA idea. They had it before. You remember, I think it was like someone lent a building for their headquarters, like in the Marinier in Tremay, and then they finally got in a spot in the quarter, and then I think the pandemic hit and they dismantled the Troop N. But no, I mean, New Orleans is, we're the, like I said, the engine that drives the ship. I think having a state troop in New Orleans isn't a problem. I think, what were they talking about? Like maybe 40 or 50 total troopers when it's fully manned. I think right now it's only like about 15 or 20. So there's still more to go. But yeah, I don't think it's a problem. I don't want to see, I mean, the state police, they've got a new guy. I think it's like a local guy, Brother Martin guy or something, from New Orleans. So it maybe kind of gets New Orleans and all that a little bit. The state police are like, what, that far from having their own consent decree? Yeah. With the problems they've had, with the guy they chased and killed and murdered, just shenanigans with, it's sort of incestuous. Like the chief only can come from within the ranks instead of scouring the country. It has to be a trooper, just sort of weird limitations and things. So they've got their own problems. They need to be looked at. They can't just be, hey, the troops, NOPD and the troopers are here, just let them do what they want. They have to be monitored and watched. But yeah, I think overall it's a good thing. And I think it's good that they're permanently here. We're the pearl for the oyster. I mean, New Orleans needs to be
Absolutely.
the king,
It's interesting seeing all of these things happening as we, I keep saying this, all roads lead to the Super Bowl, right? So we're doing these sweeps of the quarter, the crime, we're getting those special task force to concentrate on the most violent with the violent. And everything kind of goes back to, again, New Orleans is the driver, and then in the driver is the French Quarter, right? Yep. And I think the question that everyone is asking is that, great, we're doing all this stuff right now, but will it continue the day after the Super Bowl ends?
That's
the question.
No, that's legitimate. That's the problem with New Orleans. I mean, this is a weird example, but I bring up like that kind of garden in New Orleans East on the I-10 that's in between the eastbound and westbound lanes.
Yeah.
We'll go in there every decade and clear out all the weeds and plant some new plants and some, crepe myrtles. And then in 6 months, it's just weed infested. And so we invested like the $3 million, whatever it costs to do it. And then we never kept it up or maintained it. So that's kind of a problem, I think, with the French Quarter, cleaning up the city, the violent crime going down, things of this nature. I think, how do you sustain that? How do you keep that going? I mean, we're going to clean up the city for the Super Bowl where it won't be the filthiest city in America. How do we change the mentality of the citizenry where we, keep it clean and we're not the filthiest city in America anymore? How do we keep the crime down once we, have it at a level that's not, it's never acceptable, but yeah, I don't know. I think we're going to go right back to dirty again. Hopefully I'm wrong. I hope crime doesn't go back up. That seems like a little bit more of a serious problem than trash and litter. But no, these things we're doing for the Super Bowl, how do we sustain them? How do we maintain them? That we're not good at that stuff. We don't plan for the future here too well. We're lucky we get the initial thing done. Look at the airport. We built the airport. We didn't have the access road.
Yeah.
We didn't have the access road built. But then somebody told me, it's like, Corey, we got $1 billion airport. If we would have asked for another 100 million, we would have never got the airport. So, I don't know. All this stuff,
I think that dovetails really well into our next question. Just about maintaining those changes and improvements in New Orleans. It feels like there is more of a push from Baton Rouge to have more state level influence in how the city is being run. Do you think that could help in changing that mentality and changing how we maintain things?
Yeah,
Or
I mean,
could that
New Orleans is broken and dysfunctional for years. I almost think I could put two bowls of food out on the ground and have my dog run to one, and whichever he picked, we went in that direction. We'd probably see some progress. Seriously, I mean, it's so broken and so dysfunctional. We seem to embrace that. We're more concerned about black and white and Republican and Democrat and uptown, downtown fiefdoms, all this crap. It's a hard, dysfunctional place, and you know,
It seems that the state is kind of pushing things to get done that have been discussed for so like the sewage and water board, right? They're finally
it's
like
kind of like the Landry thing. I'm just worried about an agenda being there
right?
instead of a clean, come
yeah,
in
that's
and
true.
fix dysfunctional New Orleans. But again, it's like the dog with the bowl thing. I'm going to give Jeff Landry and his people, a chance, or give them a rope to hang themselves, whatever you want, however you want to put it. But I don't have a problem with some of the state intervention right now. But it is like a power struggle. Like a lot of people in the city, they want to keep that power.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it really they haven't been effective leadership, really. So I'm weary. I'm not like, yes, bring in the Troop NOLA, bring in the state, let them take over things from the city. I'm weary, but I'm for it because we've got to go in a different direction on a lot of things, I think.
Yeah,
Good point.
definitely agree. We've got to do something different.
Yeah. But, it doesn't make me skeptical or weary, and you got to keep an eye on these. These are New Orleans and Louisiana politicians, so what they
Yeah,
say and what they do can be two entirely different things.
you're not wrong about that.
No. Where, huh?
Let's get to the next questions. This is a good question. So again, the Super Bowl's coming here. And the national spotlight will be on our city.
Yep.
If you could give Governor Landry one piece of advice on putting the city's best foot forward, what would that be?
One piece of advice to put the city's best foot forward. I mean, that's an interesting question. I think like this task force he put Michael Hecht in charge of to clean up the city, 550 things. That's a good thing. I would think of maybe more of an idea than like this is an opportunity. First off, it's another Super Bowl, so it's the latest one. It's
Right.
another year. It's 2024. So this is going to be the biggest and greatest one ever. Lakefront Airport's expecting 500 G5 or larger jets for that weekend. 500.
Wow.
So I think like Michael Hecht with Radio New Orleans saying, maybe somebody like Bill Hines, who's at Jones Walker, who have bringing the Pelicans from Charlotte, the then Hornets. Doug Thornton with the Dome, maybe Jay Cicero with the Sports Foundation. Get some other people. I don't know if it's Boise Bollinger or, whatever, business people. Get in front of these CEOs and business leaders and Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 people and try to get some jobs here. Get with the affluent people in uptown New Orleans that maybe their roommate was the guy who's the Fortune 500. They went to Yale and their roommates, Get with this group of, it's an amazing group of Black men in New Orleans that are Ivy League educated, like Troy Henry, got engineering degree from Stanford. Like, what? Get those guys and get them in front of the people they were roommates with, that they know their connections. We have 100,000 Latinos in New Orleans, maybe 100,000 Hondurans. Get with them and have them connect with the Latino people. I mean, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity where the world's business people and decision makers are here. And then we sell them on the anti Houston, Atlanta, Dallas. And you can go anywhere for that. You want generic cul-de-sac neighborhoods and traffic and PTI Fridays and all that. You got 20 choices. You want someplace that's got a great lifestyle and is unique in culture and people and history and architecture and food and music that's true and real. And there's not traffic and there's room to grow and it's reasonable to live here. Think about New Orleans. That would be my number one thing. I'd be like, This is a once in a lifetime opportunity where they're on your stage in your city, you know. Get the people in front of these people and sell these people, you know. We should be able to pull a few thousand, you know, white collar CBD jobs out of this Super Bowl. And I don't think anyone's really thinking about that.
That is such a good point, and we don't hear enough people saying that about seeing the opportunity of the Super Bowl being that economic development in that way.
It's like great. We're repaving Poydras Street. Now I want an office building on Poydras Street with 1,000 jobs in that office building.
Yeah, I mean, we're entertaining these people and they're having a good time, and that's great. Sell, you know.
Yeah,
you don't sell at a funeral. You know, this is a party, and I don't. This is an opportunity to really.
I hope we capitalize on it in some way.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, whenever I hear Michael Heck's interviews, he brings this point up a lot that, you know, in the 80s with the World's Fair, a lot of street projects downtown, and that led to kind of this impetus for the warehouse district to really come into itself.
Yeah.
And all of these street works that are happening downtown, Poydras, Julia, that it's kind of like part two, and that he's trying to embrace this narrative that if it could do that in the 80s, that this will hopefully lead to like this rejuvenation going forward. And what I like about his Super Bowl infrastructure committee, and I think he was on your show last week, I was listening to your interview with him, that these weekly meetings have been so successful that he's coordinating that he quite literally wants to have a meeting the day after Super Bowl to continue doing this way.
Yeah.
So I'm really kind of liking the way he's framing this, and he's really kind of embracing the naysayers. Like, I want to prove y'all wrong. It's like, great, Michael Heck, like, prove us wrong. Like, show us that we can do this. So I'm kind of excited to see where this goes after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't know the psychology of all this, you know, if it's a bunch. But I know, like, when you feel you've accomplished something and you've reached the goal, you let off the accelerators.
Yeah. And we don't do it.
Somehow never like, okay, the Super Bowl came, we can let off the accelerator. Like, we almost need the opposite approach.
Exactly.
We're famous for letting off the accelerator. We're great Friday 5 p.m. to Monday at 8:59 a.m.
Right.
We're not so good at the Monday through Friday 9 to 5 stuff, so we got to keep the accelerator pushed to the floor nonstop.
I agree.
You know, you never cross the finish line. The field just grows and widens and gets bigger, so... But we like the 3-for-1 and hunting and fishing season and Saturday night in Tiger Stadium and Mardi Gras. So we got to focus on the stuff that is sustainable. And hopefully we can. We just need to talk about it and mention it. You know, otherwise, assuming it's just going to happen, it's not. You know.
Yeah, it's like zeroing in on what's that next goal, so that you can keep that momentum kind of zeroed in and focused when we get over that hump of the Super Bowl. That there's something
like cleaning the city.
On.
It's like cleaning the city. How do we embarrass people? Like one of us, I don't think any of us probably litter, you know, just from talking, y'all seem like decent people. If one of us were wearing that vest with that stick with the nail sticking out on a street where our contemporaries were driving by seeing us, we probably wouldn't litter anymore. And it would tell them, Jesus, you better not litter. That could be you out on the interstate picking up litter. It's just like the litter. We need to change the mentality, and we have to keep pounding the message. Yeah. I don't know if it's the Neville brothers coming up with some anti-littering jingle that just pounds people's head. I mean, seriously.
It's not a bad idea.
No, it's not. I mean, we need something like that and then like, you know, not this harsh, but like in a Neville brothers song, like, you're a loser if you litter, you know, like kind of you're the problem kind of, but in a nice melody.
I say we convert the Juan LaFonta commercials and move away from the crime to the
anti-littering.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Or get the boxer to beat up put him in the Juan LaFonta ring.
Exactly.
Well, Corey, just to kind of piggyback off of that last question, we really focused on the governor in Baton Rouge, but if you could give a piece of advice to Mayor Cantrell as we approach the Super Bowl and putting the city's best foot forward, what would that be?
No, I mean, I think the mayor's in trouble with, you know, her own personal things, but I mean, I give the mayor credit on some things. It's hard for me too, but like some of her appointments, like I think the sewage and water board guy, getting a guy out of like, you know, Milwaukee that actually does this for a living, not some appointed, anointed political hack like we usually do. Mitch Landry had like Cedric Gran in there. He's like, I'm riding my bike on the Lafitte Greenway, and there's some pool that the Morial administration put in '91, and Cedric Gant's name's on that plaque as, he's just an anointed, appointed guy forever. I think that I like that. I like, what was it in June or July? She's like, it is. I guess it was June. This is the Super Bowl summer. This is the summer of the Super Bowl. I mean, I like that. I thought that was a great message, and that gets people focused because we can't 6 weeks out in December, like when we're opening Christmas presents or shooting fireworks for New Year's. Going, oh, well, we got a Super Bowl in a month. Let's clean up the city.
Right.
So I like that she, the summer of the Super Bowl or Super Bowl summer, whatever she said a few months ago, that was a positive thing. But the mayor's got so many problems, and it's just, she's 5-6 years into this now, and there's so much baggage. It's probably best she just sort of say little things like that and sort of stay out of the way, because inevitably, you've seen these press conferences, she's just going to get questioned about.
The static, the stuff that's going on.
It takes it.
And then, Chair Davis is going to walk up there and say, I told y'all we weren't talking about that today, and then storm off. So she's got a lot of baggage right now. But I do like the summer of Super Bowl, whatever it was.
Well, Corey, thank you so much for joining us. Before we drop off, can you let our listeners know where they can find you and connect with you on social media? And
Sure. The best place is Kaare, Kaare, CoreyTalks.com. It's got all the radio stations, TV stations, YouTube, Nutrigram, YouTube. That's the best way to check it out. CoreyTalks.com.
Awesome. And before we drop off, Charles, will you let the listeners know how they can get more Pelican Briefs?
Absolutely. So everybody, thank y'all for listening today. Pelican Briefs, we're continuing to do our thing, and you can find us on all the social media, all the major streaming services, YouTube, Spotify. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, constantly posting updates. So keep following us, and we're going to continue to update on what's happening in our state and in our city.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Pelican Briefs.
If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
If you are loving the show, you can help us keep the conversation going by supporting us on Patreon.
Your contribution on Patreon ensures we can continue producing quality content you love.
Click the link in the description to become a patron today.
Until next time, this is Pelican Briefs.